Welcome, Dr. Rich Tenaza, to our Pacific Conversations.
Thank you.
So I'm going to do a brief introduction of Dr. Tenaza because he has an extensive background and tenure here at Pacific. Dr. Tenaza was a professor emeritus of biological sciences at Pacific for nearly 4 decades, so 39 years of service at the university. He is the author of more than a dozen articles in scientific journals. There is a peak in Antarctica, the Tenaza Peak, named in his honor. His research of birds, primates, mammals, and marine life brought him to all regions of the world. And as a result, our students and now our alumni got to go along on some of those trips, which we'll learn about today. But he's done research in the frozen outposts as far south as Antarctica, the northern regions of the Arctic's Point Barrow, to the rainforests of Thailand and Indonesia, to the jungles of the African continent, to the uninhabited Farallon Islands. I'm getting tired, Rich, just talking about all the places you travel to, but there's more, to his ancestral land of the Philippines, and to the various sites in the Western Hemisphere. He has lived among primitive people in Sumatra, Borneo, New Guinea, East Africa, and the Philippines. Dr. Tenaza, that is quite an introduction. Again, welcome, and thank you for your service to Pacific. And tell us a little bit about yourself. So where you're from, how'd you come to Pacific?
Yes, I'll start with my parents. My mother was from Oklahoma, so I'm what we call mestizo. My father is Filipino, my mom is white from Oklahoma. And my dad came here in 1925 from the Philippines, and like most Filipinos who came during that time, ended up being a farm worker. My mom left Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl, and like most people that left the Dust Bowl at that time also became a farm worker. So my mother's family and my father met picking peas at Pescadero, about 50 miles south of San Francisco on the coast.
Oh gosh.
Yes, and they could not get married because of anti-miscegenation laws. They couldn't get married in California, that is, or any of the states touching California. So they went to Vancouver, Washington, and got married in 1938. And I was born 8 months and 22 days later. And we were back on the farms in California. And the story goes on and on. During World War II, we had to leave the farm down by Moss Beach because they were making a military airstrip, which is now Half Moon Bay Airport. We went to San Francisco. My father worked for Bethlehem Steel as a machinist during the war, building ships at Hunters Point. After the war, back to the fields by Stockton, and on and on and on. I had spent half my growing up years in San Francisco and half in Stockton, going back and forth. That's enough for that for now.
And so, Rich, how did you walk us through? How did you become a professor? So, and how did you choose Pacific? Because from a prior conversation with you, it was very non-traditional how you got to be a professor at University of Pacific.
Yes, my interest in animal behavior and ecology started when I was a little kid with my father and other Filipino farm workers of the time, gathering food from the wild. We gather wild plants. I wasn't doing it, I was following them around. Later, I was able to do it myself. But I'd follow them around and watch what they did. And I was absolutely fascinated by it. And I was always fascinated by any of the animals anyway. But that was the beginning of my sort of study of animal behavior and ecology. When I started college, and I almost didn't go to college, I went to Balboa High School in San Francisco, and none of my friends were going to college, none of my high school friends. And I only went because my grandmother and aunt that raised me and I felt indebted to really wanted me to go to college. So I spent my last year on the farm, the year I graduated from high school, and then got a job in San Francisco. I walked the industrial part of town, knocking on doors, but walking into offices looking for a job. And finally, in November 1956, United Parcel Service hired me because the Christmas rush was starting and they needed people. So I was hired by UPS, and I did okay. And I ended up staying at UPS for 6.5 years while I was going to City College and State College. And so I graduated from San Francisco State finally, and went on to UC Davis for graduate school. But lots of things happened in between. I worked for the Army actually in Thailand to get experience in the tropics. And I worked for the Fish and Game Department in Southern California at the Salton Sea, figuring out how long the fishery is going to last with the increasing salinization of the sea. And in graduate school, I got a grant at Davis to work on gibbons, little arboreal, little primates that swing through the treetops, and they sing and they're monogamous. And I was going to work on them in Thailand, but I'd heard about these little islands called Mentawai off the coast of Sumatra and really wanted to visit those islands. The president of IUCN